Arnold.
All right, welcome to the Dean Arnold Podcast. It is July 3rd. We are going to rock and roll today and talk about things. What is tomorrow? I can bring this up a little bit. Maybe you can hear me a little better. What is tomorrow? Tomorrow is July 4th, and that is a big day in the world of America. And some people take it a little too seriously. Some people don't take it seriously enough. We're going to talk about that, I think, tomorrow. But today, we're going to talk about keeping your mouth shut. We're going to talk about the importance of listening. We're going to talk about what the book of Proverbs in the Bible calls a fool. And we're going to talk about a discipline that is rarely followed, rarely discussed, rarely appreciated in today's world. I'm not sure why, but that really is the case. Okay, I'm running for Congress. Dean Arnold for Congress. Vote for me on November 3rd. Give to my campaign, DeanArnoldForCongress.com. I'd like you to share this podcast with others. I'd like you to like it. I'd like you to subscribe. I'd like you to give comments. If you're out there and you've got a comment or question, please do that, and I'll bring it up. We'll talk about it. I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. Sanity to an insane world. Thank God there's someone out there who's willing to make an attempt to bring sanity to an insane world. That's what I'm doing. Okay. First, let's get into the scripture of the day. And I should be fairly close to bringing that up for you. There it is. Nice. Okay, Romans chapter 16. And the whole thing is greet such and such, greet such and such, greet such and such. One of them's greet Mary, which is kind of funny because if it was a fictional book, they wouldn't say greet Mary. They'd say greet, Judy, because it would just be too confusing. But it's not a fictional book. It's a real book. And so you just have anomalies like that in life. So greet Mary. It's another Mary. It's some other Mary in Rome. Greet such and such, greet such and such. So the first thing I want to say about this passage is it feels like a kind of a throwaway passage. Like, how does this apply to us? Probably nearly all those names in there probably have interesting backgrounds and provide very important historical nuggets that scholars and historians need. So that we don't know about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. But beyond that, this is the way most of the world, certainly the second and third world, this is how they interact. You go visit them, and you're going back home. They're like, please greet your mother for me. Please greet your friend Stephen. Please, will you greet him for me? It's like, sure. You go back for the third trip and they're like, did you greet your mother? Did you greet Stephen? It's a very important practice in cultures that are not ours. So, we see it here. Paul's doing it because Paul weren't no first world American. He weren't no Westerner. He's a whole different thing. He's Eastern. We can talk about that, but we won't. One more thing I want to talk about in verse 10. Greet Apelles, approved in Christ. Greet those who are of the household of Aristobulus. I think I mentioned him the other day, but let's mention him again. Aristobulus was of the household of Caesar. He worked in the household of Caesar, and of course, greet his own household here. He was British. Might have been Welsh. I'm not sure. But after all this, and he was in Rome and greeted by Paul, and he was also one of the 70. Jesus had 12 disciples, and he had 70 disciples. Broader umbrella of disciples. And Aristobulus was one of them, and he was British. And after he's in Rome and gets greeted by Paul and all that kind of stuff, at some point he goes back to Britain. He becomes one of the early bishops of the British church. And so you got Christianity in Britain happening at a very early stage, which is cool for people like me who are descended from Britain. Proud of it, not ashamed of it. Everybody should be proud of their heritage. I'm proud of mine. And I'm happy to hear that in the first century, there was a Christian movement. All right, that's it for Romans today. Let's get to Matthew chapter 13. This is the parable of the sower. Most of you should be familiar with it. Jesus tells this parable. Some seed gets scattered on the road and doesn't get anywhere close to getting in the soil. It gets eaten up by birds, which is probably a metaphor for the devil and the demons. The second one gets on rocky soil and it immediately springs up, but then it dies quickly because it didn't have any soil underneath it. These are people who come into the church or come into Christianity. They're all excited, and, a week later, they're gone. Okay. The fourth one goes into the good ground and yields a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Hallelujah. It's the third one I want to focus on here today. And some, verse 7, and some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. Okay, so these are people who, they get into the soil, they make the soil. They're not on rocks. They're not on roads. And they grow, and they're growing in the Christian faith, and they're involved in the church, and all sorts of good things are happening. And then they get in contact with thorns that are also growing in the ground, the wheat and the tares. Remember that story? And the thorns choke them out, and they don't make it. Okay, we see that. But here's what I want to bring to your attention. In Luke chapter 8, Jesus, the same story of Jesus is also told, the same parable. And here's how Luke says it. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up with it and choked the plants. That is like exactly not what I was looking for. That's because I got to go farther down, because farther on, Jesus explains it. And he says, the seed that fell among the thorns stands for those who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by, he explains what the thorns are, by life's worries, riches, and pleasures, and they do not mature. So we spent several podcasts talking about these passages where Jesus says, don't worry, quit worrying. Don't worry about you're going to eat, drink, and wear. The pagans chase after these things. Your heavenly Father knows that you need them, but seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be taken care of. Well, here he says that there's people who are the thorns come up and worries. Thorns represent all these worries. They also represent riches and pleasures, the desire to get rich and the love of money. So this is a pernicious problem. It's not just like one of 10 things you got to be concerned about as a Christian. It's like really the top of the list. Just quit being overtaken by money. Quit desiring to be rich. And if you're watching that TV all the time, they're going to constantly be coming at you with, get rich, you got to get rich. It's all about money. You need to have more money. Why don't you have more money? Why don't you complain about the fact that of how little money you have? So that's today's gospel. Don't go there. Trust the Lord. Seek first the kingdom. That's what you're really trying to do, is follow Jesus Christ and his word and help people and love your neighbor and all these things. Tell the truth. Quit worrying about money. Okay. Saint of the day. I think we might have a couple. So let's go first to Martyr Hyacinth. And I believe he's the 12-year-old. Martyr, I got to bring him up. Sorry. Martyr Hyacinth of Caesarea in Cappadocia and those with him. Okay, he was raised in a Christian family. The Emperor Trajan made the boy his cubicularius, or chamberlain, his little servant. We hope that, and probably there weren't pernicious things involved with that relationship. He was a chamberlain. He may have had cleaned out chamber pots. He was a secret Christian. He was 12 years old. Trajan's like 2nd or 3rd century. And someone overheard him praying fervently in his room. So one of the servants kind of narked him to the emperor. And so the emperor said, you need to sacrifice to the Roman gods. And he's like, nope, not going to do it. So he's brought to trial. And so they decided they were going to throw him in prison, and they'd only give him food that had already been sacrificed to idols. So he's tempted every day with all this food that had already been offered to idols, and he was not going to eat that food and deny Jesus Christ. And they did that for 38 days. And for 38 days, he refused to eat the food. And guess what? He died. He died of hunger. They came to torture him, but they'd already found his dead body. 12-year-old Hyacinth suffered for Christ in the year 108. Early Christian martyrs. Wow, we owe such a debt. All right, let's go. Let's try. Should we try another? Gosh, I don't know. We'll leave it at that. I forget. There's another saint on the calendar. There's 16 saints on the calendar today. Can you stand it? And one of them is this Hyacinth. And the other one is something about, can't find them. Is this the unsleeping ones? Yeah. So you got Saint Alexander, founder of the monastery of the unsleeping ones, whatever. He was this great godly man, ascetic. The story I want to tell, though, is that he somehow is involved in some cave somewhere. He walks into the cave, and there's all these, they call them robbers in the story, but really gang, as a gang. So these are killers, thieves, evil people who expect to go to prison and often go to prison. He goes in there, and one thing leads to another, and he leads them to Christ. And they all get baptized and they give their lives to Christ, and they start a monastery in that cave. So I think this Alexander we're talking about in this saint story, he founds one monastery where nobody sleeps. They stay up all night praying all the time. So it got to be known as the monastery of the unsleeping. Then he founds this monastery of these, gang leaders who turn their cave into a monastery, which is great. Then it says that people got jealous of him and caused him problems, so he had to leave. Wow, that happens. Happens today in various circles. And so he moved to Constantinople and started another monastery. And that, went pretty well. And he died as a godly man, and they made him a saint. He kept founding monasteries. So good on him, Saint Alexander. Okay. Now let's talk about today's topic, which is, can you keep your mouth shut? Can you be a good listener? Can you not talk all the time, just talking all the time? It just gets crazy. Now I'm going to try to bring up some verses where I've got this. I didn't really practice this very well, but I'm hoping I got a shot at it. Not looking good there. Maybe if I think I just did something that might have made it work. I think I did. All right, let's go back to my StreamYard, so I know if you guys are seeing it. Yeah. But you're not seeing it. Okay. You're going to have to hear me talk about it. Proverbs, the book of Proverbs. It's riddled with all these verses about how you shouldn't be talking all the time. There's a lot of people who just talk all the time. Talk. And they don't let anybody else talk. And they don't listen to anybody else. They want to talk. Talk. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 8. A chattering fool comes to ruin. Proverbs, Solomon does not like a chattering fool. He just doesn't like it. Doesn't want it, doesn't like it. A chattering fool. Don't do it. But they're everywhere. Most preachers are people who, when you're with them in real life, they're talking all the time. They can't shut up. They can't listen. Most politicians, if you're with them in real life, they're talking all the time. They can't shut up and listen. They can't have a conversation. What we're looking for in life is a conversation. That is where one person talks, they have something interesting to say, then they stop, and then the other person talks, they have something interesting to say, and the first person listens to what they have to say. And then they respond basically in light of what that person said. And then the other person responds again in light of what that person says. They go back and forth. The number of words is fairly even. Everybody's actually listening to one another and trying to get to whatever it is they're talking about, whether it's the truth or something funny or interesting or exploring the mysteries of a particular person or whatever it is you're doing. It's a conversation. And you know what? The older I get, the more that I find that conversations are pretty dang rare. They don't happen very often. Usually one person dominates and the other people just listen because they don't want to offend, they don't want to interrupt, or maybe they can't because the other person talks all the time. Once in a while, there'll be a lull, and the person who talks all the time allows an opening for the other person to start to talk. And maybe after a little bit of a pause, some of these timid, sheepily people will begin to talk. And like 4 words in, the dominating person will interrupt them and keep talking again. Happens all the time. In fact, there is a verse in Proverbs that discusses it. Proverbs 18:13. To answer before listening, that is folly and shame. Happens all the time. One person talks, the other person listens. The person who listens then responds to the person who talked, given plenty of time and not interrupted. The first person listens to that and responds to that. And we have a conversation. Doesn't happen very often. When it does, it's a wonderful thing. You got to enjoy it. You got to appreciate it. Now, granted, if you got one dominating person and all the listeners who just want to listen and whatever, you can't have a conversation if when it's time to respond, that person doesn't have something to say. So a conversation does require that the second person actually has something to say. Sometimes they don't, but usually almost everybody has something to say. And I have found I've spent my whole life interviewing people for publications, for movies, for films, for testimonials of people's lives, for books that I'm writing, and interview them. And really, pretty much everybody has something interesting to say if you will dig for it. Got to dig. Got to go for it. But yeah, by the way, when I was younger, late teens, I had a practice of reading the Bible every day, but I would always read one psalm and one proverb, chapter in Proverbs. Proverbs has 31 chapters, so it works really nice for the day of the month. But I did that for years, and I really learned the book of Proverbs. And what you're hearing here is part of that is the fruit of studying the book every day for a number of years as a young man. Let me light my let me light my and then, by the way, these chattering fools, Proverbs says, just get away from them, man. Just get away. In the conversation as soon as you can. Say, been nice to be here. I got to go. It's late. Look at your watch. Excuse yourself. Go to the next room. Whatever. Just stay away from them. All they do is talk. They don't want to listen. They're not interested in the truth. They're not interested in you. And I don't know. I think most people, it's like a muscle, or any habit that you develop. Once you get this rush of hearing yourself talk, it just grows and grows, and the muscle grows and muscle grows. And that's all you want to do is you just want to hear yourself talk. And whoever you're with, you're going to hear yourself talk, and you're going to talk, and you're talking, you're talk. You don't care about everybody else. Everybody else pretends like they like you. Hey, thank you very much, but they really don't. Okay. Proverbs 24, verse 7, I think. Wisdom is too high for fools. In the assembly at the gate, they must not open their mouths. So these people who talk all the time, whether preachers or politicians or just people who want to fill the room up and dominate and whatever, when it really comes time to share something, when the council meets, when you have the congressional hearing, when you whatever, when the news teams want to go ask somebody a question, they ain't going to ask those people. They're going to ask the person who's been quiet and been listening and trying to gather truth. At least I hope they do. Let's share some more verses. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. So the wise, they want to find knowledge and truth. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. Just not interested in the truth. All they want to do is talk. I just want to tell you about what I know. I know this, and I know that, and I know this, and I know that. Oh, are you in the room? Did you want to say something? Oh, go ahead, say something. 4 words. Interrupt and continue talking. All right. The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered. So wise people, they don't talk that much. I think I've got most of the verses in. Cool story. I found this in a book somewhere. Might be apocryphal, doesn't matter. But the story is that in Victorian England, there were 2 prime ministers that were rivals. They kept getting elected back and forth. Benjamin Disraeli and William Gladstone. And there was a woman in London who had the privilege of they were both bachelors. And a woman had the privilege of being asked on a date by both of them. And I believe she started with Disraeli. And she went out with him, and she came back, and all her friends, how to go, chatter about it. And she said, after being on a date with Benjamin Disraeli, I'm convinced he's the greatest man in the world. So then she goes on a date with William Gladstone. She comes home from the date, and all her friends, chitter, chatter. How'd it go? What'd you think? And she says, you know what? After being on my date with him, I've decided he made me feel like I was the greatest person in the world. So he listened. Disraeli talk. And she chose the latter. She chose William Gladstone as the person she wanted to keep dating. Love that story. Fantastic story. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. It's kind of a weird topic, but if you want someone in Congress who just talks all the time, then elect somebody else. But if you want somebody who listens to you, who listens to his constituents, and then tries to represent them as best as possible, then you want someone who cares about listening and finding the truth, like we've discussed today in this podcast. So I suggest you do that. All right. What else we want to say? I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. And sanity includes listening to others, not talking all the time. Any comments today? I don't think we've got any comments. Darn. Oh well. Today is July 3rd. Share, subscribe, vote for me. Go to DeanArnoldForCongress.com. Give me a contribution. But I think we are rocking and rolling. And I think we've gotten it done today. And today is an interesting topic. It's actually something I'm very passionate about. And I don't talk about it that much because likely if I'm in a place to talk about it, there's some chattering fool that's going to get offended. But listen, don't talk all the time. A lot of people haven't figured out that most people just don't care about you. They care about themselves. Like that woman that went on the date with the British prime ministers. She really cares about herself. She wants to be listened to. So you think about that, and the rest of you just try to survive the chattering fools. It's not easy, but things come around, and you'll probably be okay. But anyway, this is actually an issue close to my heart that I don't get to discuss that much. All right, we are going to now sign off. Dean Arnold for Congress. Let's see. So I hit.
Dean Arnold.